A new UN climate report details humanity's impact on global warming, and it repeats a dire warning we've heard before. Act now or face irreversible consequences. Joining me from London is the CBC's Abhi Kuwadasan. She's been looking into this report. What are some of the key points here?
Arthi, several years of research, nearly 100 scientists worked on this report. It's about 1,000 pages long, and the main message, as you said, is act now to ensure a livable future on this planet. The report says that every region in the world is projected to face some sort of spike in climate hazards. It also says limiting global warming to that 1.5 degrees Celsius target that about 200 countries agreed to back in the 2015 climate conference in Paris may no longer be possible, because this report now says to achieve that target, the world needs to slash emissions by 60% by 2035. And as of right now, we know that most governments, most G20 governments, are not on track to meet their Paris targets. Now, the IPCC also says reductions this decade will determine whether we not only just surpass that 1.5 target, or whether we move into the 2 degrees Celsius mark, which would mean, as experts have previously said, that an additional 420 million people will be exposed to extreme heat. I spoke to a climate expert a short while ago, and he said this IPCC report is the gravest one that he's read. Let's have a listen.
The language in this report is far more grave. It's about the fact that we are now seeing multiple worrying signals from climate change, and we're not dealing with the problem fast enough. We're now at about 1.1 degrees Celsius above these pre-industrial levels, yet there is a clear signal that this warming is causing an increase in the frequency and intensity of a number of really harmful impacts: heat waves, floods, and droughts.
Now, experts, of course, have pointed out that we've already seen some of these heat waves and floods. This past summer here in the UK and across Europe, there were unprecedented heat waves. There was flooding too last year in Pakistan. 1/3 of that country was submerged underwater. Nearly 8 million people were displaced. And the report also points at the fact that those who don't emit as much greenhouse emissions in the developing world are the ones that are facing the dire consequences as of right now. But again, the main message being act now, Arthi.
And Abhi, we've been hearing warnings from scientists for years. We were talking about that right off the top. Is it too late for action to improve the situation?
The report says there is a glimmer of hope. Despite the fact that we can never go back to the way things were, there is a possibility of changing things and reducing emissions to the point that the future generations have a livable planet, that there is a window of opportunity to avoid disaster. The report that says that some future changes are simply unavoidable, but they can be limited with major reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. And we heard from UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who called on developed nations in particular to make those cuts as soon as possible, Arthi.
Thanks for this, Abhi. That is Abhi Kuwadasan in London.